Okay, so we're doing the final video on Dressrosa. Well, sort of. So what I've done is I've split this monster of an arc into 3 videos, and quite frankly, it could easily be 4. It's already kind of 4 because there's going to be a Doflamingo character analysis video next week. So it could have been 5. This arc, there's just so much crammed into it. It's really challenging to review in even a mildly concise way. And I'm failing miserably. So this review, I've already done the first third, second third, now we're on the final stretch, which is so full. I mean, it's really fight heavy, but it's so full of lore and character moments and so much to discuss. So what I'm gonna do for my own sanity is I'm gonna have to compact it a little bit. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on every single moment. In fact, there are a couple things that I'm just gonna skip right over. So what I'll do, since there's so many fights happening, I'm going to briefly highlight some of my favorite fight sequences, and then from there we'll do kind of a deeper discussion on some of the moments that really, really stuck with me. And then from there, we'll do a big long discussion on the final fight, the big climax of the arc, and then all the falling action. Oh man. And then theories. Oh my goodness, too much. We're gonna try to cram it all in one video. That'll be fun, won't it? If you haven't watched the first 2 videos, you can. There's lots of content for you. Okay, getting straight into it all. So where I left off in the last arc was right after Law's big flashback with Corazon and all of that. So now it goes straight into fight sequence after fight sequence after fight sequence, and they were so good, but also so well balanced. There was so much, I'll get into it. With this fight between Law and Doflamingo, we get so much more theory fodder and lore around the D, the name D, whatever this encompasses, I'm still not sure, but with Dofi saying that Luffy, well rather Law implying that Luffy was guided by fate to take down Mingo because of the power of the D. We had so many extraordinary lines between both of them throughout this fight, as well as Law really pushing back against Mingo's gaslighting, which he does all throughout this arc, and I think that that's just a great element to his character of how manipulative he is, both physically and verbally. He's so manipulative and constantly gaslighting everybody he comes in contact with. And it's so great to see people like Law and Luffy that throw it back in his face. And then we have the moment where Law's arm gets cut off. And I have to say, I hate to do it, but we're gonna get into a little bit of a criticism this early in the video. And I wanna be really clear because usually I don't get into this stuff this early. I wanna be really clear that I have loved this arc and this entire video is going to be a huge gush. But I have a couple of things that didn't work perfectly for me. And one of the things is the way this arm went, because this was such an intense moment. When Law lost his arm, I was freaking out because this is so significant. And Law has been through so much throughout this entire arc, from seeing the emotional trauma he's experienced, from seeing how he still wrestles with the loss of Corazon, to see how truly filled with rage he is at Doflamingo and his fight to avenge someone that he loved so much and who took care of him and fought for him, as well as the physical abuse he's gone through, being contained by those sea stone cuffs for so long and being a rag doll, and now being beaten and having his arm cut off. He's gone through so much throughout this arc, both in flashbacks and in present tense. We've seen him go through so much. However, it does bother me that not that long after his arm was cut off, you know, it's back. And I guess this is one of my main kind of complaints about Oda's writing as a whole, is that a lot of times when these huge stakes things happen, a lot of times it's kind of just reversed pretty quickly thereafter. And to me, it really takes away the impact. And I feel that way not infrequently with One Piece is these big, huge things happen, and then very, very shortly thereafter it's reversed, and I'm just like, all right, so why did we do it then? It kind of takes away the impact for me, and this arm thing was something that was really impactful for me, and then with it being reversed, I'm just kind of left with like, okay, then why'd we do it? Other than the fact that Law took down Treble with his own severed limb. That was an amazing scene that I would never want taken back, but I don't know. Oda's so good at long-lasting impact, and he's so good at really high stakes and high consequences that actually do leave a long-lasting effect in so many ways. Oda provides so much emotional impact in this story that just sticks with me and that I chew on and stew on for so long. But then there are things like this where it really falls flat for me because it feels like this is such a big moment that I'm not even left to really revel in. It just kind of happens and then we move on and we're not really spending time stewing in the fact that he's lost a limb. But despite that complaint, I loved this fight, and I felt that it was so emotionally impactful in every other way, and I really, really love the contrast between Law and Doflamingo, and we're gonna get more into it whenever I do that video for Mingo. The fight with Zoro and Pika that is still ongoing, that will never stop going. Just kidding, it's over. But this fight that has gone on for so long between these two, I enjoyed so much. I love being able to see in action how much Zoro has changed and grown over this time skip, how many new things he's learned, not only in being able to cut through more and being like knowing how to use hockey to his advantage for his swords, but then also seeing so much personal growth in him as well that we've gained through this time skip. I loved the tiny little flashback that we got of him being trained with Hawkeye and how intense Hawkeye was about like, don't even let a scratch or a cut, what's it called? A scratch or a chip get in your sword, and teaching him how to do that and how to honor his swords and respect his swords more, as well as becoming a greater fighter. There's so many just little things that come with these fights with Zoro that just show me a little bit at a time how much he's grown, and I know there's more to come, and that's what's so great. I said this in my last video about the way that Oda is reintroducing these characters post time skip, is that it's not just this big old information dump. We're seeing in action little by little how much they really have leveled up, both in personal and in physical abilities, but also in their inner selves, how much they've changed over these 2 years. And I really like this very slow information that we're getting on them. It makes these fights that much more impactful because we're getting the information through the fights little by little. I love it. Seeing Zoro rationalize and realize not only that he has to cut through Pika and basically just slice him to bits until he can get to the inner Pika, the real Pika, and then takes him out so lightly once he overcomes the mental obstacle, the puzzle that he has to solve essentially to be able to take down this foe. See, the humor of him chasing after him and being like, do you even want to fight? And then the creativity of him saying, I don't know how to handle this. Oh, I know, I'll just fly. And the fella, I don't remember his name, who responds with, this technique isn't really meant to be for the safety of the person I'm throwing. It's filled with so many little moments amongst this big, massive fight that is satisfying in and of itself, but these little moments just make it that much more fun to read about. Said I'd be brief with these, let's try to move a little bit faster. The fight scene with G, how does he do that? And Auntie Garp and his grandson was so awesome. Again, filled with humor, with G almost dying in the middle of a battle of old age and his ridiculous fighting style, the beautiful moments that we got between Auntie Garp and his grandson and their bonding and Auntie Garp's pride in him. Couple that with what we get from Baby 5 within this fight, which is one that I'm going to break down just a little bit more in this video, so I'll skip over it for now, but we'll come back to it. So many fights that are really satisfying in and of themselves, but then other characters end up coming in and blending into the fight as well, which just adds more moments on top of moments. Oh, so good. The scene with the I don't remember his name, the guy that wears heels, his fight with Kyros, where he reveals that he has fighting fish blood and starts eating him, or like, I don't know, chewing on him. And then Cabbage comes rushing in and handles it in his terrifying way. Bart, who has been a me stand-in throughout this entire arc, comedic relief, simping after everybody, gushing over everyone, losing his mind every time someone looks at him. He's been great comedic relief. He's been an asset for how incredibly loyal he is to them. But actually seeing him in action and surprisingly, he's incredibly powerful was so fun to see. I didn't know that I was powerful. Thank you, Oda, for making the character that you used as me, as a me stand-in. Thank you for making me have powers in this story. I appreciate it. Frankie and Senior Pink, their fight was amazing. Couple that with a flashback that adds more layers to Pink and Frankie. You know, I love and adore Frankie more and more the more time I spend with him, and Frankie picking up on the fact that there's something deeper there with Pink, even though he didn't see the flashback with us, and just saying, we'll get drinks sometime and we'll talk about it. And Frankie's just really cool. And in the midst of all of that, we also get so much character comedic relief, like with the fact that, I don't know, maybe Oda could just tell that we would miss, or at least that I would miss, the Sanji and Zoro dynamics that I eat up so much with Sanji being gone. So he just made Garp and Cabbage the new Sanji and Zoro for this arc and had them fight in a very similar manner. And it's just lovely. I want to spend a little bit of time, now we're getting breezing past a whole bunch of fights. Now we're getting into a little bit of time where I want to unpack a couple of things that really hit me a little bit harder, and one of them is Bellamy's character. Bellamy is a character that really surprised me in the choices that Oda made for him, from him finding someone that he admired and looked up to and just wanting his approval, wanting to join his crew, wanting to be acknowledged and noticed and appreciated by someone. He found a person to follow instead of a dream to follow. And he devoted himself wholeheartedly to that person on the same level that people like Luffy and Zoro and, I almost said Lucy, people like Luffy and Zoro and Robin, etc., that they dedicate their entire beings into their dreams and following that wholeheartedly. Bellamy did the same with following a person because he didn't have a dream to follow. And unfortunately, he picked the wrong person. And seeing that play out was really interesting to me. I fully expected Bellamy to turn on Mingo and become an asset to us, become a part of our team, you know, this, not a part of our crew, but, you know, the team of people that are following Luffy and dedicating their lives to seeing him take down Mingo. I fully expected Bellamy to join too, but he didn't. In lacking a dream, he followed a person with all that he was. And he followed the wrong person. And he committed himself wholly to that, even when that person clearly was manipulating him and didn't care about him and left him to die. And even in realizing that, his response was, if I'm gonna die an idiot, I might as well do it all the way. And even in realizing that the person that he's aligned himself with was the wrong person, doesn't care about him, that getting his attention and approval isn't something worth fighting for. It was kind of like, I'm in this deep. I've already lost it all. I might as well finish it out, even though I realize that I made the wrong choice. And he just doubles down on those choices and sees it through to the end, just hoping to get some of Mingo's approval. And it's such a tragic character choice, but such a realistic one as well, where it's like, I'm in so deep, it doesn't feel like there really is a way out, even though Luffy, just such a ridiculously emotionally intelligent person, will get to it. Even though Luffy sees the full situation, sees the conundrum that he's in, and is offering him a way out, it's like Bellamy's in too deep to even be willing to accept that. It's like he kind of, at this point, saw that the thing that he devoted his life to wasn't actually worthy of devoting his life to, but at this point it's like it's irredeemable, or it's too late to turn back now, so what choice do I have? So he just finished, or planned to finish, dying for this cause that, I don't know, he probably didn't even believe in anymore, but what choice did he have? It's such a tragic perspective or mindset for him to be in for his last breaths. But thankfully, Luffy, our good boy, is the best boy, and they weren't his last breaths. Kind of skipping ahead here because this is one of the last chapters, but I'm just going to go ahead and close this thought that I have about Bellamy and skip ahead and also talk about his ending, the fact that he wasn't killed in this fight and he ended up taking part of the, I actually don't know how to pronounce this, Vivicard? He decided to take part of the thing that would connect him to Luffy. But I don't know, I expected when he took that, I expected him to say, all right, yeah, I'll join the fleet. I know I'm way ahead of myself now. I expected him to say, all right, I'll join the fleet. I'll be a part of this loyalty to you. But his response instead was, I'm not committing myself to you, but I'll take the card just so that I have an option. And I really love this too, because it would have been so easy for him to go from committing himself to the wrong person to seeing someone who seemed worth following and then follow him. But instead, he's not going to blindly follow someone else. He's taking a step back, and I like to think that he's reevaluating. And what I would love to see from this character the next time we see him is I would love to see him kind of have this full circle from mocking Luffy for having a dream and having none of his own. And therefore, because he had no dream, devoting himself to a person and that being the greatest mistake of his life. From there, finding his own dream and following it. And the next time we see him wholly committed towards his own dream that he's looking to accomplish, to succeed at. I really like the idea of him not finding a person to commit himself to, but a dream, because I feel like that would bring his character arc to the fullest point. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I was really impressed with Bellamy in this arc. I fully expected him to play a major role in it as someone who turns on Mingo and is essential in us defeating him. But he was the opposite. He was a huge obstacle for Luffy, not necessarily in strength. Luffy could have taken him a lot easier than he did, but an obstacle in that Luffy had to be extra creative and work extra hard to stop him from being his own demise, while also getting him out of the way of Mingo so that Luffy could take him down. And then him being this example of, I'm in too deep, I've gone too far, I see my future as hopeless. But getting that second chance and then the opportunity for what we're gonna do with his character the next time we see him is I just really liked that. The next thing I want to unpack, I'm going to very lightly unpack, and that's Baby 5. She's a character that when I first was introduced to her and we meet her by her trying to kill Mingo, and she just seemed really cool, I instantly loved her. Then I very quickly backtracked on that and didn't love her because she seemed pretty shallow. This kind of, you seem like you could be cool, but actually you're just in desperate need of being wanted, and anybody that asks you for anything, you'll bend over backwards to give. And she just seemed very emotionally unstable, but in a really shallow way. And just in a second, that changed. When she points her own gun at her head and says, I'll gladly die if it's gonna be of a help, and then we get that just flash of a flashback, that little brief flashback of her being unwanted even by her own mother, coming from this place of people who don't have enough food to feed the mouths, and they view her as really nothing more than a burden, saying that they'll leave her in the mountains. You're no use around here. You're unwanted, unneeded. She says, even you, Mama, even you don't need me. And just getting that level of depth to why she's so desperate to be needed and to provide for anyone's needs exactly as they would need them. The moment they give that to her, desperate desire to be wanted and loved, and seeing where that comes from just really activated my mom heart. But then also that kind of bleeding into other characters getting the spotlight with Auntie Garp's grandson, who says, when she says, but I was, when he stops her from killing herself, and she responds with, but I was trying to help you. And he says, and I guess you've been living in a place where no one forced you to stop. doing that. Whew, that's a line. I love that line for his character, and I love that line for how much we're going to explore that in the Doflamingo video that we're doing next week. There are other characters that got just a really brief flashback that added layers to their character and added layers to why they are what they are today. Senior Pink, obviously, is one of them. But the reason I really wanted to highlight Baby 5 here is because I want to pay special attention to her here, because we're going to use this as springboard for some things that we're going to discuss in the Mingo video. Okay, I'm almost done with these things that I want to spend more time really talking about, but I'm not done yet. So Rebecca and Kyros, that fight when they're fighting against the fella that killed Scarlet, you know what I'm talking about? There'll be panels on the screen. I really, really loved this fight as well. And it's one, so in the beginning of the fight, when Rebecca is ready to face off against the man who killed her mother, and this is definitely a big emotional moment for her. She's trained her life fighting with her dad. She didn't know he was her dad, but now we do. She trained her life learning to fight. And this is her moment where she gets to go up against the man who took a huge part of her life from her, who not only did that, but who is mocking her over it, and who's pleased at his actions and is excited to take her down too, to finish the job. And this moment where she gets to face off against him, I was really looking forward to. So when Kyros and Robin kept blocking her, it was kind of frustrating for me, especially because when Kyros entered the scene and told Luffy and Law, you go take care of Doflamingo, I've got more important work here. You know, defending my daughter, being next to her. And I loved that moment for him. And so when he arrived on the scene, then I'm like, awesome, even better. A scene where Rebecca and her father, who she finally realizes is her father, she had forgotten him and now she remembers him. A scene where she gets to fight next to, side by side with the man that she had forgotten and who she just now got back into her life. What an excellent scene. And so when they wouldn't let her fight, it was really frustrating to me at first. I've accepted it now. I kind of like the way Oda went, even though, well, I like the way Oda went. We'll talk about it. The reason I like it is because Oda has invested a lot of time into putting so much emotional gravity behind these two characters. Really, Rebecca and Kyros have been such a representative of the country as a whole, of the true effects that Doflamingo have had on the individual residents in stealing Kyros' freedom after he didn't want his freedom, didn't want to be remembered, but then he found a family and he found love and he found acceptance, and then to have that ripped from him, and now he's forced into, you know, the body of a toy, and he's been forgotten, and his family has been stolen from him in such an extreme way. And then with Rebecca, seeing the effects on her of how much it's affected her, that her freedoms were stolen as well, that her memories were stolen from her, that a lot of her future was stolen from her. Seeing in a very close and personal way, in two different forms, how much Mingo's stealing the kingdom and the way he's ruling it, how much that has affected the individual. They've really been a representative of the individuals of this kingdom. And he's put so much focus on emotionally investing us in them. And on Kyros specifically, on the emphasis of him not wanting to touch his daughter because there's blood on his hands. His hands are tainted, and so he wears gloves, and he never touched her. And then he turned into a soldier, and then he couldn't touch her. And now in this scene, where I'm ready for them to fight side by side, we continue on with that theme of Kyros' mentality of, I'm willing to fight for my family. I'm willing to kill for my family, but I don't revel in the act. And his desperate desire to not taint his daughter's hands as well, to not allow her hands to be tainted as well. He'll defend her. He'll kill for her. He'll kill this man for them, but he doesn't want her to do it as well because he wants her hands to remain clean for herself, as well as for being able to continue to fulfill the legacy of her mom, what her mother wanted for her. And I do really, really like how that's kind of come back around in such a big way. It's one of those things where it would be extremely satisfying for us, the readers, to see Rebecca and her dad fight side by side now that she's remembered him, now that they're truly reunited again, to see them have each other's back and take down the man that stole from them, to take him down together. That would be so satisfying. But this is just kind of a different kind of satisfying, to go the route of showing the pain of taking a life and him as a father still trying to protect his daughter from that. Even though it's well deserved, it still affects you in a way, and he wants to guard her of that too, just still keeping that fatherly role, still trying to his very last breath with everything in him, doing everything he can to protect her, just like he promised when she was a child. I really like that. I really appreciate how much focus and emphasis Oda has put on this fatherly love and fatherly protection, and how desperately Kyros wants to protect her in every way he can. I still do wish I could have seen them fighting side by side instead of her being blocked from the fight that she was willing to take on. I do wish I could have seen that, but I'm satisfied with the route Oda went. I think that it's a different kind of depth than I was looking for, but it was still a really satisfying one. I'll also mention Robin here, because Robin has really been relegated in this entire arc to a supporting role, and I'm not mad about it. I love Robin so much, but she is a really supporting character when her dreams aren't on the forefront. Ever since we've met her, she's more than willing to simply walk away from her crew if it means that she can further her studies and further her desire for knowledge. Fishman Island, she's just looking at, she's just studying history and finding one of the glyphs and learning more information, and then asking the king more information. She's doing her own thing throughout Fishman Island. She definitely participated, but she's really doing her own thing throughout most of it. But when the opportunity for knowledge isn't there for her in an arc, then she does consistently play a supporting role, and I do think that that fits her character very well. Her thirst for knowledge and for understanding is her first priority, but when that opportunity isn't there, she's happy to just go along with the crew, help them in fights if they need help, just be there to understand and smile with Luffy. She just kind of goes along with stuff with a very cheery attitude and morbid humor, and I really love that about her. I think it fits her character and personality quite well. So her supporting Usopp and then being a major element in Usopp's character development when she was forgotten, when she was turned into a toy, and then, you know, Usopp running because he didn't have a crew member there with him anymore, and then having to stand up on his own to defend. Such a great moment for him. But she was essential in that character development for him, and then her being essential in this moment for Rebecca and Kyros. And, you know, looking back over the role that she's played in arcs, she's regularly amazing in fights when she's needed, and when she's not, she just kind of chills in the background. And I love and adore Robin. She's powerful, she's intelligent, she's beautiful, she's hilarious, she's thirsting for knowledge, and she's so constantly providing us with lore and information, and I love everything about Robin. And I think that as much as I want to see her on the forefront more, I really think that her stepping back and, you know, she's not Zoro. She's not looking for the next fight. She's not mad at Luffy when Luffy takes the fight, or excited when it's her turn to fight. She's content to just be with them. Unless there's an opportunity for knowledge, then that's where she goes. And I kind of think that fits her character quite well. So her playing a supportive role throughout this entire monster of an arc makes sense for her character, and I'm fine with it, but I really hope that when we get to, Zoe. When we get to Zoe, I hope that she plays a bigger role. For some reason, I think she will. It feels like maybe just because of this tiny little bit a glimpse that we've gotten of Zoe at the end of this arc, it seems like it's going to be a really lore-heavy arc. So I like to think that she's going to shine again. I'm ready for her to shine again. Okay, last thing that I want to dig into really deep before we get to the final scene. Thank you for indulging me if you're still here. And that's gonna be Luffy's emotional intelligence. So Luffy, I love him for how childlike he is. I love him for how much he dreams and how he sees the world from such an innocent perspective, how much he doesn't care about knowing anyone's backstory or understanding any information or gaining any knowledge. He just genuinely wants to fight, to become Pirate King, and to protect the people he cares about. And I love the simplicity of his character, but this man's emotional intelligence is rivaled by none. And when he sees a character in need, or being manipulated, or having something stolen from him, his very quick understanding of that situation and response is just, it's my favorite thing. That fight with Bellamy, the fact that he knows the game that Doflamingo was playing, he knows that Bellamy would never turn away. He understood the emotional situation better than I did. The fact that he understood that Bellamy would not turn on Doflamingo, that he felt trapped in his situation and wouldn't walk away. And then whenever Mingo tries to gaslight again, Luffy won't hear it, won't be turned by it, and basically tells him to cut the crap. Ooh, it's so good. And then, I'm not done, then at the end of the arc, when Rebecca is about to be made into a princess or like get on her throne, and the rumors have been made about her heritage and all that kind of stuff, and they need to get off the island. They're on a time crunch. There's some things going on that makes it urgent for them to leave now. Luffy doesn't care. Instead, like a madman, he launches himself against the bars on Rebecca's window and is screaming at her, just wanting to know, are you okay? And she even asks him questions like, does the soldier not want to live with me? And he's like, don't know, don't care. Are you happy? And I love that is so true to Luffy, where he's just like, that's not my problem. I genuinely don't care about your backstory. It doesn't matter to me what this person over here thinks. I'm just trying to make sure that you're pleased with where you are, that you're not being manipulated or forced into some sort of situation. And the moment she says, no, I'm not okay with this, then he breaks through, grabs her, runs with her, provides himself as a distraction so that she can handle her stuff. The level of emotional intelligence and dedication to seeing that people land where they're supposed to land. I have a friend, he's probably not watching this. I have a friend that doesn't like Luffy because he doesn't think that Luffy has any kind of intelligence and thinks that he's generally just extremely immature and an obstacle in every way. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I think that Luffy is the most emotionally intelligent and dedicated character. Yeah, he's naive. Yeah, he's childlike. And he's hilarious more often than he's serious. But he gets people. He gets the core of people. And that's how he responds to them. And I just love it. Now it's time for the final fight. I'm gonna go get some tea first though. Okay, the final fight, this 2v2 Luffy and Law versus Doflamingo and Treble. I'm gonna skip over a lot of Treble in this fight because he's gonna have a big role in my dedicated Doflamingo video. But oh my goodness, the magnitude of this fight. Amazing! Law's whole plan here, his master plan that I wasn't in on, that I got to be surprised by too, of him creating the room large enough that Doofy and Treble couldn't see it, Doofy and Treble couldn't see it, and taking him down in that way. Doflamingo regenerating himself or stitching his innards back together with his stupid string powers, and then Doflamingo trying to stomp out Law, finish him with a stomping of the foot, and Luffy stopping him with his own. I am very strongly reminded of the Nut Island when Zoro was at his max and nearly taken out by being stomped by that light guy, and Rayleigh coming in and stopping him with his foot. Do you remember it? I do. And I love that parallel where the man who trained Luffy stopped such a powerful foe with his foot and displaying the level of strength inside of him. And then Luffy, who's been trained by Rayleigh, replicating that scene in his own way by stopping such a powerful foe from stomping out someone that we love who's weak and who's wounded and dying. It was such a good moment. There's so much to unpack here between Doflamingo's past, his Conqueror's hockey, knowing the major role that Treble played in raising up Doflamingo to be the man that we know today. Again, that's next week's video, but I'm just acknowledging that it is here and it will be spoken on. Law once again being essentially, I spilled the tea. I'll set this down. Law once again being taken out of the fight and so weak that he can't move. This time he's under the care of Cabbage, and him wanting to be set down because he wants to see Luffy take out his enemy, or else he might as well just die right after Luffy, because this is what Law has to live for. This is the thing that he's dedicated his life to at this point. And then Cabbage setting him down but standing guard and saying, if you die, it'll be after me. What a scene! Luffy and Mingo fighting off against each other, Luffy hitting his Gear 4, and he looks essentially the same as, or similar to how he looked when 100 shadows were crammed inside of his body and he became Monster Luffy, which I'm not mad about. It's actually really cool. I kind of dig this design because I like that it pulls so much from him physically to be able to maintain this form. And I feel like we can see that. We can physically see the strain on his body with the hockey around his eyes, the shadow, you know, the hockey creating this look around his eyes. And I feel like I can see his body straining, and it's like everything within him as he's in this form looks painful and difficult to maintain. I just feel like this design really captures the strain on his body that it is creating. So much happens with this fight. With Luffy and Mingo fighting, the fight is excellent, but then Luffy running out of time in Gear 4 and not being able to land that killing blow. And then him telling the people around him, just give me 10 minutes. Just hold him off for 10 minutes and then I'll be good. And man, I love timed fights. It's something that I don't get tired of. Put a time limit on something like we did with Enies Lobby. Put a time limit on something and I'm just like, it raises the excitement levels so high for me. And then Blackbeard's fella, the masked paper bag on your head fella, Jesus something, him wanting to kill Luffy before he can get back up, before he can finish the job, but then Sabo coming in and taking that fight. I have such mixed feelings about Sabo, which I'll get into in a little while, but despite my mixed feelings about him, I still just, I love it every time he comes into an action scene because he's great in action scenes. Between the things that he says, how defensive he is over Luffy and him standing in for him, and then he just gets really cool fight panels, you know? Like, he always looks so cool when he was using his own abilities before he got the dragon fruit and devil fruit. And now whenever he has the flame fruit and he's using it, it just looks awesome. Plus the fact that he views the fruit still as Ace's and he's still calling it Ace's fruit. Oh, I have complaints about him too. We'll get into it, but I do really love him in action so much. And then in the midst of all of this craziness, we still have the Birdcage coming in on everybody, cinching in, ready to slice them all and kill everyone. And then you have Zoro, the first man to see we need to push back against this. So he takes his swords, his hockey swords, and he starts pushing, but he's not strong enough, so everybody joins in, and it's such a moment. Luffy, who is now the ragdoll, now the one that has expended his abilities to the extent that he doesn't have he can't move. He's now been passed off to Law, which I just love that pass off with how much Law has been a ragdoll throughout this entire arc and been overpowered throughout this entire arc, which I have mixed feelings about that too, because I really wanted to see Law in action, and he was kind of not in this arc as much as he definitely had some amazing fight scenes, but you know what I mean. Anyway, he was the ragdoll throughout this entire arc, and he was constantly being carried around and protected by Luffy while he was in the sea stone cuffs. And now that Luffy has been overpowered and has expended himself too far and can't move, he's now passed off to Law, who's still weak, but now Law is here protecting Luffy, and I just really love that pass off. And then you have people like Bart, who's creating this barrier, and they're all pushing against his barrier. We have them pushing against the Seastone Smile Factory, and everybody's just coming together to push, and it is not Law. Oh wait, and Crybaby, the Crybaby princess, not the pink hair one, the yellow hair one, the gnome, the dwarf Crybaby, her crying over everybody and her healing tears, healing them as they're pushing. Oh my goodness. And it is not lost on me that in this whole scene, we have a very distinct panel of Zoro between the two samurais as the three of them are using their swords to push back. And I'm telling you, Oda is constantly, regularly, distinctly putting Zoro next to the samurais and drawing lines between them. And I still don't understand it, but I think he's going to be trained by them or have some sort of really significant connection with them. This fight scene between Doflamingo and Violet, where Violet fully turns on him. She's already changed her alliance, her allegiances. She's already changed who she's fighting with, but now she's actually fighting against him. And him controlling Rebecca and holding Viola, holding her so that she can't move and forcing Rebecca to kill her just like he did with her granddad. And oh my goodness, that whole scene where Violet is saying, close your eyes, Rebecca, so you don't have to watch this happen, so you don't have to see yourself kill me, essentially. And her telling her, I won't begrudge this of you. I won't hold this against you. I mean, she's gonna die, so she can't. But you know what I mean? Like, this moment of her looking after Rebecca as Rebecca is about to be forced to kill her. Oh, such pure evil from Doflamingo and such pure goodness and pain from these girls. Oh, what a moment. Okay, here comes another complaint before I continue gushing. I love timed battles. I love, okay, give me 10 minutes. Hold him off for 10 minutes and I'll be there. I'll be ready again. Or, you know, you have this much time to accomplish this goal or else this person dies. I love that sort of thing. However, I think that Oda was a tad too precise with it. And also Mr. Announcer Guy, who I love all of a sudden, someone who I thought was completely insignificant and who cares who he is, ended up being a really funny and fun and great presence in this action. Anyway, I don't know, it was just too much. It was just too much between Luffy's revival of hockey after using Gear 4. To our knowledge, this is his first time that he's actually properly used Gear 4. So him knowing that it's going to be exactly 10 minutes down to the second seems just a touch precise. But then also, I don't want to just say that and then move on. It really bothers me. Down to the second is just a bit much. But then also with Gatos or something, the announcer guy, with him then announcing to everyone, and I understand that he's trying to rally people and he's trying to say, believe in Luffy, it's almost time, he's gonna save us all. I get that. But with him counting down for us on some sort of loudspeakers that are somehow following him around, him counting down and saying 8 more seconds, 7, 6, in this big dramatic moment. And I'm over here just thinking, what are you doing? Dofi is over there toying with these two girls, and you telling him, you doing this countdown and announcing to the world how much time is left. Not only does that mean that if Mingo were in any way smart, that he would just go, oh, I don't have time to toy with them. Rebecca, kill her. Boom, done. That was easy. So it takes away Dofi's compulsion to toy with people, or it should have taken away Dofi's compulsion to toy with people, and then just quickly had Rebecca slaughtered V, because that would make sense if that was his action. But then also it completely takes away the element of surprise that Luffy should have in this moment, in that now Dofi's like, oh, okay, so he'll be here in 3 seconds. I will prepare myself. Now, it didn't play out that way. Dofi did just continue to toy with the girls, and Luffy was able to come in and stop it right before Rebecca killed V. So I don't know, I just didn't really like this moment. I think that the timing was way too precise for how much, like, it'll be exactly 10 minutes down to the second. I didn't like the announcer guy telling Dofi, telling Mingo how much time is left and then Mingo not acting on that with any kind of intelligence. I don't know. I really love a timed battle, but I didn't love this. But I loved every other element of this timed thing. So this fight again, when Luffy has regained his haki, was so great, seeing these two up against each other when they're so weak, and then finding out that Mingo's powers are even greater than we thought, and he can turn literally anything into string, including buildings, everything, and attacking him, and Luffy's haki not being strong enough, and him being able to penetrate that haki. Oh my goodness! Luffy's speech where he says, "You're trying to control everything, and it's suffocating me." Dofi saying, "Blame your blood," and then this final moment where everything cracks. Oh, we're reminded that the people, the power of D, the will of D, that they are the enemies of gods. And Mingo is so convinced that he is a god when he tells Luffy, "Blame your blood," and then he's taken. Oh. But even more than all of that, it was the falling action that got me. I think that of Oda's many storytelling skills, his falling action is incredible. And oh man, the image of everybody pushing on this birdcage, working together, giving their all, not even being able to pay attention to the fight. And then when Mingo is knocked out and the birdcage disappears and they all fall, except Fujitora, they all fall. Oh, the weight of that moment. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of become a thing in my household when I'm reading One Piece. Sometimes I'm gasping and I'm freaking out, and sometimes I'm just crying. And this was one of those moments. The fight was great. Seeing Doflamingo being defeated was great. But this moment where everybody just continued to push, not knowing that it was over, and then the cage being lifted, and them all falling. And then we just get a quick flash of different people remembering the way that they've been affected. I really love that this arc is such a parallel to Arabasta. You know, it's showing if Crocodile had succeeded in fully taking over, in ruining the king's name, and in taking the kingdom and doing what he wanted with it, then, you know, this is what that would have looked like if a warlord, a mean, evil warlord had taken over. And then this kind of shows what Arabasta could have been. And then you have so many direct parallels on top of that, like this, when Luffy defeats Doflamingo and when he defeated Croc and the rain fell. Versus this, when they're pushing and he defeats Doflamingo and the cage lifts. It's just Oda's emotional yet cinematic falling action in the wake of the enemy being defeated, of the final battle being complete. It's just, that hits me harder than most things in One Piece do. We have this scene with Blackbeard's fella, you know, taunting Sabo. And again, Sabo's action scenes are just so beautifully drawn. The people wanting their king back on the throne. Fujitora bowing before him and admitting that the government failed, that they messed up. What a moment, you know? What a moment. The falling action in this arc, it's great. They're always great. Then we have like 7 chapters or something like that that are very lore heavy at the end of this arc. So I'm gonna go through them kind of quick because there's a lot. There's too much to unpack, and we've already been here too long, and I'm still not even done. We know that Sleepy Navy Guy has teamed up with Blackbeard, which was hinted at when we were still in the arena, and we walked in on Blackbeard's guy saying that he wasn't sure if he wanted to trust Sleepy Navy Guy. We now have confirmation, which is so interesting to me because I remember him stopping Doflamingo from killing Smoker, but if he's working with Blackbeard, why did he do that? I don't know what capacity they're working together. There's so much that I desperately need to know about that. I'm also pretty offended because I asked him to join our crew, and he chose to join Blackbeard's crew, which admittedly Blackbeard has some really cool powers. I don't blame you, but also he's a bad guy, so rude. Oh yeah. That's right. This is the part with the Sabo stuff. All right, fine. I'm not a fan of this. We find out that Sabo, after the whole thing with the flashback when they were kids, he was rescued by Dragon, that he had memory loss. He remembered nothing at all, including his name. And it all came rushing back to him whenever he saw Ace and Luffy in the paper. And I don't like it. For me, I don't like it because I feel like Oda didn't give us enough for it to really work. I think that there's too many variables here between, you know, Sabo being the right-hand man of the revolutionary soldiers. So his name's got to be out there somewhat, you know, and I feel like avoiding these three brothers finding out about each other and avoiding Sabo's memories to come back early. Even Robin probably should have had some knowledge of Sabo. I don't know, there's a lot that is left up for the readers to kind of have to piece together to force it to make sense. It's too unsturdy. There's too many elements that I think would make it fall apart pretty easily unless the reader is choosing to take things and say, well, maybe Sabo's memory would only come back if he saw the two of them together in the same article, or maybe the reason that Ace and Luffy never heard about Sabo, or the reason that, you know, it kind of like everything just has to line up exactly right in order for this plot line to be successful. And I don't like that. I don't hate that. That's not the end of the world. I could let that go. But in general, I just don't. My main reason for not liking it is because it's way too convenient. I'm not a fan of memory loss in general. I have definitely seen it done well. There are books that I love that have done memory loss as a major plot point, and I have loved the way they're done. So I'm not against memory loss completely, but I think that the way it was done here, I don't like. Mostly because Sabo forgetting everything, which is fine, I guess. Sabo forgetting everything and then maintaining that forgetfulness for like, what, 10 years? For a really long time. And then for it all to come rushing back to him at the point that's the most convenient for the plot, I don't like. If it had come back while he was at Marineford and this brother that we didn't even know anything about yet in the story came rushing in and saved them, that wouldn't have worked for the plot. That wouldn't have been good storytelling. If it had come back before Ace's death, if it had come back, you know, like back before Ace was even in trouble, that wouldn't have worked as well for the plot. It's certainly not the most convenient timing for the brothers, but it is the best timing for the plot. And I really, really don't like the use of memory loss to get a character out of the way for as long as the story needs him out of the way, and then the moment that it would be good for the story for that character to come back, boom. I remember everything now, and I'm fully committed to who I once was. I don't like it. I don't like it. I have really mixed feelings about Sabo because I wasn't sold on his introduction immediately after Ace's death. Oh, we have another brother now. I never believed his death, so I've been waiting for him to come back. And I do like his return. I thought he was an amazing presence all throughout this arc. Every scene he had, he owned. So I do like his presence in the story. I don't like his entrance, and I don't like the reasoning for why he was absent for so long and has now come rushing back. So I'm left feeling really, really mixed about him. But I do love his protectiveness over Luffy, and I do love Luffy's love for him and his joy at not having lost both of his brothers. So again, just really mixed. Oh, also he flies out on a bunch of birds. Gonna need an explanation for that one. Oh, and now I want to talk about Kratos. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. Kaido. Nope. Yeah, I want to talk about Kaido because he's interesting. Between him being sentenced to death how many times and it never sticking, him trying to kill himself and it never sticking, he's clearly really powerful, and also just his presence is really intense. So I'm thrilled that we've angered him, and I'm thrilled that we're not done with him, and I'm thrilled that we get more from him. I do have I guess with this, I'll go ahead and talk about the abilities that we learned about. I talked about it in the last video with Law's devil fruit, that he can grant eternal life, but if he does, then he'll take his own life. Obviously, this has happened at some point, because in order for us to know that this devil fruit has this ability, in order for that to be documented and be knowledge out in the world, obviously that means that somebody at some point in history has used it, which means that somebody in this story has eternal life. The obvious answer is Kaido, this emperor of the sea, one of the 4 emperors. He's the obvious answer because he can't be killed and he can't kill himself even though he tries. He falls from Skypia, or one of the Sky Islands, I don't know if it was Skypia. He falls from one of the Sky Islands and is just like, owie. It barely affects him. So he sure does come off as if he's immortal, which will make him a really interesting opponent that we're about to face off against. I mean, probably not about to. It's Oda. It'll probably take a while, but he's gonna be a really interesting opponent. But he's basically immortal, or seemingly very close to. So the obvious answer of who has been granted immortality, who's been granted eternal life, one would think it would be him. But I have a couple other theories too. I really like the idea of it being Rayleigh, because Rayleigh was a part of Roger's crew. He knows where the One Piece is. He has indicated that he knows what the 100-year gap in history is and what caused it and all that kind of stuff. And if he has that kind of knowledge, he's either sought that knowledge like Robin is currently doing and has succeeded in finding it, or he's lived through it. Obviously, Rayleigh does age, but I mean, honestly, he doesn't look that different with the 2-year time skip. You know, a lot of people have changed a lot. Even Buddha is gray hair now, and so is Smoker. A lot of people have changed in that 2-year time skip. A lot of people that were not gray haired are now gray haired over these 2 years. And Rayleigh was gray when we met him at first. I know he wasn't in flashbacks, but he could have gotten the ability, you know, at the gray hair point. I'm just saying, he didn't seem to change too much in the 2-year time skip, and he seems to have an abundant amount of knowledge, like maybe he's lived a couple lifespans. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't remember, like maybe we had a flashback of him with Roger and he didn't have gray hair at that point. I don't know. All I'm saying is he could be an option. I also have my eyes on that one fella that's looking after Laboon for us. He's a presence that is clearly significant. He knew Roger. He was on Brooke's crew. He's looking after Laboon like he's got all the time in the world. I don't know. He stands out to me. I feel like he's going to be significant, and I haven't figured out how, so it seems like it's him. Also, technically, I suppose it could be our samurai guy, because I do still think that there's something weird about his speech patterns and about his unfamiliarity with culture, you know, like he doesn't know the correct words for a lot of things. He's offended at the way Nami dresses. Not really offended, but you know what I mean. He's unaccustomed to it. There's a lot of things around our samurai guy that makes me think that his lifespan is extremely long. So I don't know. Maybe him. I don't think it's him. I think the obvious answer is our emperor that we're going to face off against at some point. But then I think it also could be Rayleigh or the guy looking after Laboon. Or it could be somebody I haven't met yet. Who knows? But somebody out there has eternal life. Oh, and I also want to mention that the moment at the end of the arc where Rebecca holds his hand and asks if her hand is warm, and he says it is, that one really got me. Because him not wanting to touch her, and then not being able to touch her, and then finally getting to hold her hand after she tells him, it doesn't matter to me that you've killed someone. It wouldn't matter to me if you've killed 100 people or hundreds of people. It doesn't change who you are in my eyes. And once she tells him that in her eyes, from her perspective, his hands aren't dirty. Then she gets to hold his hand, and he gets to touch his daughter, feel her, hold her hand for the very first time. I just really, really like the strong themes of family in between these two. Oh, it's good. Another little thing at the end that I really liked was when Bellamy is mad that he was saved, and Bellamy is yelling at him, and he's like, why didn't you abandon me? Now I've lost my place to die. And Law's response is basically, don't blame me, Luffy told me to do it. And it really reminds me of Zoro when he saved Smoker, and Zoro was like, I would have let you die, but my captain told me to save you. And I really love that happens with the people around Luffy, that they're just so loyal, and they follow him. They just follow him, whether they agree or not. Okay, this whole conversation between Law and Buddha was incredible. I loved the stuff that Buddha said to him, him hinting that he knows a lot more about the will of D than he's letting on. But then also that line where he tells Law not to what is it? Don't rationalize Corazon's love for you. Oh, that was really good. Luffy and Fujitora fighting off, and Fujitora chasing after him, but then the crowds of people kind of blocking him and being grateful for what Luffy has done for them all, and then Fujitora wishing that he could see Luffy's face. Oh, that was a really, really good scene. And then that kind of brings us into, and that also in that moment we get revealed that the whole kingdom, they always knew. They always knew that the fairy myth wasn't real. They always knew that that Scarlet and Kyros ran off together. They never bought the death, but they played along. And then whenever Kyros tried to start the rumor about her heritage and tried to remove himself for her sake, and they were like, we know this too. But then we have everything with the Grand Fleet, and oh my goodness, do I love this too. All these characters that I thought were unimportant and that I thought I didn't remember and that I thought didn't matter, not only do they play a huge role in the final fights and in everything that goes down here and taking down Doflamingo, but then also them pledging their loyalty to Luffy and wanting to be his Grand Fleet, him rejecting that because it would cramp his style, then them understanding the core of who Luffy is and kind of turning the tables on him, where Luffy is constantly saying, this person is part of my crew, and the person saying, no, I'm not, and Luffy basically saying, you really don't have a choice in the matter. And now these people doing the exact same thing to him with saying, we're your Grand Fleet, and he's like, no, you're not. And they're like, you really don't have a choice in the matter. We will follow you freely. We're choosing to use our freedom this way. We'll be loyal to you. We'll be waiting if you need us. The crew responding exactly as the crew would, and laughing along with it and going along with it. Zoro just trying to drink the alcohol. And all the chaos, just so much chaos around this really beautiful moment was just wonderful. I'll also make note that once again, Oda is drawing specific lines and connections between Usopp and the Giants. We talked about this in the last video, so I won't go over it all again, but every single time the Giants have been in the story, Usopp has made very distinct connections with them. I'll go over it again. Like with Usopp, when he first met them and he understood them immediately, with him connecting with them in a lobby and being the information that they needed in order to free themselves. Him saying specifically at the end of Little Garden that he was going to go visit Elbreth or whatever it's called. He was going to go visit it someday. Them seeing him as God Usopp and now having some really distinct connection with him there. And now, once again, at the very end, Usopp saying again, oh, I can't wait to go to Elbeth. I'm just saying, every single time there is a giant on the page while Usopp is around, there's a distinct connection between them. He's definitely going to that island someday, and I think someday when they do find the One Piece and then they are a happy little crew that have all accomplished their dreams, and then I think that they'll probably part ways eventually and go vacation and live happily somewhere. They're all going to find their separate places to separate, and I think that Usopp is going to end his story on Elbaf, on the giant island. I just think he will. Anyway, there's also some small things, like we see that Pigeon Guy is now going to be back into the story. We see some of our crew that are on the Zo Island, and they're hunting after a samurai there too. Who? Is it one of our samurais? Is it someone new? I don't know, but they're hunting after a samurai. Seems like the Zo Island is going to be pretty intense, which I'm excited about. Oh, and you know, Minko isn't dead, which, okay. I've come at this point to accept that people are just a lot more resilient in the One Piece world, that people don't die easily, that it's a huge thing when somebody dies and their devil fruit regenerates and somebody else can get it. They're basically Pokemon. When they fight, they faint. They don't die. It's rare for them to die. I've accepted this and I'm fine with it. I really don't like that when we defeated Doflamingo, his glasses broke, symbolizing the end. And then when we see him again, he's wearing the glasses and they're fine. I don't like, did you have a spare pair on you? But that's fine. I'm fine with it. He's a Pokemon, he's a Caterpie. He fainted. But anyway, the arc ends on stating that Luffy is beginning, or has begun, the war of all wars. Everybody's mad at him for destroying these resources of the smile fruits, and now everybody's mad, and it's gonna go down poorly. And honestly, I mean, Luffy practically goes looking for wars, so I'm not surprised, and I can't wait to see what's to come. I'm sure it'll be more chaos and more greatness. So if you're still here, my overall thoughts on this arc are kind of the same that they've been from the beginning. I really enjoyed it. This arc was wonderful. It was action-packed. It was full of amazing character moments, character development, great crew moments, tons of incredible fight scenes, as well as amazing emotionally impactful scenes. This arc was riddled with flashbacks, so many flashbacks, some really long, some really short, that packed amazing punches. It's an arc that was really fun to read over 3 weeks. I think that if I had been reading this one week to week, it would have been rough. Not because the arc isn't good. It's jam-packed with action and character and lore. It's full of so much great content. But just an arc this long is probably, it's probably just tiring to be in for this period of time. But I'm pretty sure the arc that you guys, if you're reading week to week, I'm pretty sure the arc that you're in right now is even longer than this one, so what do I know? But I enjoyed it a lot. For me, I had a blast with this arc. I think that Doflamingo is one of the best villains, if not the best villain yet. I think that Blackbeard will top him whenever we get to the point that Blackbeard is a really strong presence in the story. But as of right now, he's a phenomenal antagonist. The setting was wonderful. The parallels between this and Arabasta was incredible. The amount of lore that got added to, or that began here, is wonderful. The action, the emotion, just so much that this arc brought really, really well. It's a middle of the road arc for me. It's not a new favorite. I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely not like it was okay arc. It was great. I loved it. But there are a lot of really great arcs out there. So it's like in the middle for me. It's like good. I really, really, really enjoyed myself. But I'm excited to see what comes next. Anyway, even though I did read this really quickly, over 3 weeks, which is 100 chapters in 3, that's a lot. That's a lot of content to consume in a short period of time. Even though I consumed it so quickly, I'm still excited for a change. I'm excited for a new setting, excited for a new obstacle, excited for whatever themes will be explored in the next place. So can't wait. Next week will be the Doflamingo analysis, kind of breaking down his character, looking into him more, because as much as I hate him, because he's very evil, I also really appreciate him for the villain that he is. Very deep, so many layers to him, and I just want to spend a little bit of time kind of digging into that, and then we'll do the Zo Island. Be sure to chat with me more about this in the comments if there's anything that you need to clarify that I've messed up, or anything that you want to add and continue discussing. Please do. I post videos every Tuesday through Friday. I'll see you again on my next One Piece Friday. Bye.